next question we have is from an indie developer. We'd like to get started with Unity ROAS campaigns ASAP, but we have no prior experience. Can you guide us on how to get started with them?
Sure. So my favorite thing about ROAS campaigns is that they are so simple that they're actually complicated. If you know what I mean.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of ROI 101. Today, we're very excited to be covering a highly requested topic, which is how to optimize your ROAS campaigns in Unity ads. After receiving feedback that our last video didn't cover the dashboard setup and campaign optimization steps in enough detail, we decided to create a new video to address that. In this video, we'll guide you through the steps to set up and optimize your Unity Ads ROAS campaigns for the best results. Joining us today is Egor Ershov, a Unity expert, who will share some of his top tips and best practices. So, Egor, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here today and very excited to share the best practices on how to work with all the tools available on Unity Ads platform, focusing on ROAS campaigns. This is a very hot topic, and we are very excited to have as many developers joining our platform and using the tools in the best way possible.
Right, and thank you for being here. I just want to mention that today we are following a bit of a different format in our video. We have put together a series of questions that have come directly from our audience, and we were able to pick out like six most frequently asked questions and share them with Unity beforehand so they could prepare a presentation. So yeah, that's how it's going to be in terms of format. Egor, are you ready to get started?
Definitely. 6 is one of my favorite numbers.
Perfect. Okay. So the first question from our audience is, I'm currently not using Unity Ads, but I'm considering starting. What kind of goals would I be able to achieve by adding Unity Ads to my UA strategy from an indie developer?
This is one of my favorite ever questions because in order to answer it correctly, we actually first should ask ourselves, what is our goal? Like very often, advertisers would approach opening up a new advertising channel just for the sake of opening it. And it's crucial to understand what exact result you want to see and then determine the optimization steps. If you are not sure, you can always refer to this memo, and I like to refer to it very often. Is your goal to test out a new game? So namely, is your goal a soft launch? You just developed a new game, you're prototyping it, and you want to see how the users will actually behave. And you want to see how they are reacting to different triggers within the gameplay. One of the next steps and one of the other goals could be testing out creatives. This is a little bit more advanced, but we provide a comprehensive set of tools for that. And they allow you to actually test which videos, which playable assets, which end cards work better. So you can improve your marketing strategy overall. At time, your goal might be just to acquire a specific amount of the new users. So we also have tools which can help you with that. At times, you might be asked that you need to analyze the delivery metrics. How well the videos you are currently using are converting the audience from watching the ads to actually installing the app. And every other kind of upper funnel metrics are easily determinable within Unity Ads. And as a pinnacle goal, but one of the most frequently discovered, is when advertisers are coming to us with an approach to spend as much money as they can within the target KPIs. So basically maintaining performance at scale. And this probably is going to be our key topic for today, moving on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can an advertiser use Unity Ads to optimize their campaigns towards some of these different outcomes that you've just mentioned?
Yeah. So, in order to do that, we have a very diverse portfolio of tools which allow you to achieve any of the goal I mentioned before or any other pretty much encountered within the performance marketing journey. So if we look at this portfolio of tools, we can break them down into scale tools and performance tools. So scale tools usually are perceived as simple. So when using these tools, we usually optimize all our activity towards installs. So install here is the pinnacle of the activity, right?
Mhm.
And in order to achieve and get as many installs as possible, we have two versions of the install campaigns, one using static bidding technology and another one using automated bidding technology. The main difference between those two is that static bidding allows you to set a static cost per install and optimize towards it. Look at it as you have an LTV of the app of $2, so you cannot exceed it, and you would like to acquire new users with the CPI below that. Install campaigns with automated bidding strategy allows you to optimize towards the max bid. And this campaign type utilizes your entire daily budget on scale. For example, you set up a max bid of $3 and the daily budget of 500. So what Unity will do in this case, we will optimize towards minimizing the install costs, but maximizing the user base per day. And the optimization here happens dynamically, and usually this is helpful for soft launches. Besides that, a little bit on the side, we have creative testing campaigns. We're very proud of this campaign type. It's one of the unique campaign types we offer to the market, and they allow you to practically A/B test your creatives one versus another. So think of that as you have two videos, and in one video, the character is wearing green hat, and in another one, the character is wearing the blue hat. And you want to understand whether the color of the hat actually affects how engaging the video is. So with the creative testing campaign types, you can compare similar amounts of impressions one versus another and see which one performs better. So besides the scale tools, the most advanced technologies we have are implemented into performance tools. So within the performance tools portfolio, you can use either ROAS optimized campaign types, and ROAS here stands for return on ad spend, retention optimized campaigns, and campaigns optimized towards events. I think we can dive deeper into how ROAS campaigns work in particular later in this conversation. But what you should know here when starting working with the particular campaign type is to match and proof it towards your actual goal. So remembering what we've mentioned before, always know what you're doing before
Mhm.
selecting the right tool for you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just had a small question here. So, I wanted to understand, like, let's say I've just published my game and I don't have too many resources, and I want to start running ROAS campaigns in Unity Ads. What kind of campaign would you recommend me to start with?
So first of all, you got to determine what type of revenue dominates in your game.
Okay.
S- Typically, we would have either ad revenue monetized games or in-app purchase
Right. Yeah.
monetized games.
Hmm.
So this is already the intersection where you either select IAP ROAS campaigns or ad revenue ROAS campaigns.
Hmm.
However, if your game has a mix of both, you can use hybrid ROAS
Right.
campaigns here.
Okay.
So this is all about understanding your product well as a UA manager or as a marketing specialist. And
Hmm.
this is where I usually recommend the advertisers who are coming to us to first of all actually go out there and play their game, use their app,
Mm-hmm.
understand what kind of product you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
So you will, once you know the product from A to Z, you will also know how to market it better.
Yeah. And to also understand your goal, like you've just stated.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we can move on to the next question.
I think we do, yeah.
Okay, so the next question from an ad marketer. I have been using Unity ads for a while, and I'm unable to pinpoint exactly when is a good time to make changes to my campaigns, whether that change is for spend, creatives, or something else.
Yeah, so understanding when and how to optimize your campaigns always come to everyone. Like you would at some point always think, what shall I do to make my campaigns perform better?
Mhm.
But at times, it's hard to understand how your campaign is actually performing. And what we like to do is to check your campaign towards this set of indicators and basically just tick the checkboxes, whether any of them match your current circumstances. So your activity can give you several types of the indicators which will guide you towards where you need to go with your optimization scenario. So first we start with spend. This is usually the simplest one to understand. So sometimes your campaign doesn't spend all the available daily budget. So this can be a signal that something is not right with your bids and you're not competitive enough within the auction, and there is a room to improve there. On the opposite, your entire daily budget might also be fully spent, and this is also a very good point for us to optimize.
Mhm.
Perhaps your campaign is over competitive and you're actually bidding a little bit too high, and you can save some costs and allow yourself to acquire more users but at lower costs.
Mhm.
Also, your campaign can have very unstable spend. This usually is dictated by some technical difficulties or something else, um, worth to explore. But keep in mind that the way your campaign spends the daily budget is not granted, but usually is a great indicator to understand what is actually going on.
Right. Um, what is the worst problem to have, just out of curiosity? Is it when, your campaign is doesn't spend the available budget, or the other way around?
I would probably say that campaign not spending the daily budget is usually the most complicated challenge to overcome. Because if you look at it, if it's unstable and it's a technical issue, you can always fix it and move
Yeah.
on. If your fully daily budget is spent, well, now your job is to spend it
And more.
effectively.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a kind of sweet task everyone likes to deal with.
Yeah.
But if your campaign doesn't spend at all, you have to go through some iterations and you probably will need to work with both bids and your creative strategy to improve your activity.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So moving on here, another very important part of understanding how to optimize your campaign is to look at the delivery indicators. So by delivery, we mean the actual process when the ad is delivered to a user. So there is a variety of metrics which might be necessary to consider when looking at the delivery metrics: conversion rate, click through rate, CPI or cost per install, and ECPM. All those metrics either being above or below your KPIs or within your standard results from other ad partners, all of those could be the indicators that your campaign got to be modified. And in order to do that, you utilize the tools available on your campaign management page or with your creatives.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think when I read these terms like too low or too high, I was curious as to, what exactly is too low or too high. But I think you've just clarified that maybe, when I compare it to my other marketing partners, that's what I could use as a
Yeah,
comparison or a basis. Okay.
exactly. Your historical data is basically your best friend.
Right.
And knowing how you were acquiring users in the UK in the past year will help you a lot to build your marketing strategy for the upcoming year as well.
Right.
Additionally, and this, by the way, is applicable not only to Unity, but pretty much to every marketing channel you're using. Never hesitate to talk to the networks. Never hesitate to talk to the representatives.
Mm-hmm.
Use the data available online to find out what is the current marketing trend, what are the current costs trend.
Right.
So use the available resources you have.
Got it.
Yeah, so the next stop would be the revenue indicators. So revenue indicators usually come last after you have already acquired a specific amount of users. So the key one here is going to be ROAS, um, and this is pretty much why we are running our campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
to achieve ROAS as high as possible. So the most frequent case when you would need to start thinking about optimizing your campaigns is when your ROAS is too low. But different campaign types give you different signal. So retention, or how often the users come back to your product, can also be very important metric here. And another part of the revenue indicators is also the costs. So ROAS as return on ad spend consists of your revenue and of your costs. So there is a chance that your product is very strong and generates the revenue consistently from each and every user, but you're acquiring those users at such the high costs that you can never break even or make the profit. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the time when we have to start thinking about costs. Usually it all comes down to CPI, cost per install, but there could be different cases as well.
Got it. But when you say an indicator is when your ROAS is too low, um, does that mean anything below 100% is too low or?
So the ideal scenario is that your ROAS is at 100% and
Yeah.
above. The only question is when you want to achieve those 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Whether
Yeah.
you want to achieve it by day 30, day 60, day 180, or any other type of the metrics set up by your business. So basically how quickly you want to turn profitable with your business model. Different
Mm-hmm.
companies allow different profitability windows for themselves,
Yeah.
and it's important always to keep in mind what's happening within your company, like how quick you need to break even.
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is as short as possible, well, you might find out yourself in quite a pickle, and
Yeah.
you might need to work very hard to achieve the results like that.
Yeah. From my understanding, that also depends on the genre of the game, right?
Yes, yeah,
So,
different games perform differently, and they
yeah.
turn profit in a different way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Uh, Cool. And just in order to support everything we've mentioned before, so spend indicators, delivery indicators, revenue indicators, we have some in-dashboard indicators which are specific to Unity ads.
Mhm.
So there are two types of them. One is the insight cards. Those are usually little tips on how to make your campaigns perform better. We frequently release new features and updates which allow you to work with your campaigns in a better way, add additional data streams so the campaigns would optimize more profitably, um, and just basically anything. And usually those indicate that, hey, you need to add a new ID there. You need to work with the new setting or anything else. So keep an eye out of them and make sure you use them properly and you don't have any insight cards piled in your dashboard.
Are they like out there or are they hard to miss? Like, do they pop up or how
Well,
does it?
if you ask me, they're out there, they're flashy, and they basically look like banners on your campaign details page and on your campaign page.
Okay.
So make sure to always look at the top of your screen when you go to manage your
All
campaigns.
right. So top
Yeah.
of the screen, flashy. Great.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Not too flashy, probably quite stylish. I would say. I like the work done by our design team.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So moving on to the next question then. From a UA manager, what are the different types of tools available in the Unity dashboard that I can use to run reporting and keep track of my campaign performance or any changes?
Yeah, we spent some time talking about the indicators, but like besides the insight cards and budget alerts, where you would find those indicators.
Mhm.
So simply three ways to find them and to identify those indicators and insights. Um, First being the campaign details page, which gives you the look back on what's happening to your campaign.
Mhm.
Second one is a very comprehensive history and performance tool, which allows you to check the history of the edits of your campaign towards your performance. And the last but not least is the full reporting capabilities. So those are the tools which allow you to actually go to as deep level as possible up to the source app level where you are actually acquiring your users from, what are the costs for each particular unit of your user acquisition activity, and basically build any kind of dashboards you'd like.
Mhm.
So I'd like to make maybe a brief stop at each one of them because they're all
Sure.
straightforward, very convenient to use. But if we just move on with the
Yeah.
slides, yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask quickly, would you say any one of these are more important than the other? Like, is there a hierarchy or would you give like equal weightage to each of them?
I would probably say that all three of them are the pillars of monitoring your activity properly, and none of them should be overlooked. So when it comes to campaign details page, and you can see how it looks like from the slide here.
Mhm.
Um, this is your first entrance to understanding how your campaign performed in the relative 24 hours, 7 days, or 30 days. So this is going to be your first way to see, okay, in the last 24 hours, my campaign spiked in the delivery. What's happening? Maybe that's the new creative I have added. Or vice versa, your campaign just stopped delivering at all. So what's going on? Are the bids too low or something else? So you can assess all this data on either the level of your campaign or on the level of the creative pack, which is another unit of doing UA.
Mhm.
So from the campaign details page, which allow you the first glance, you would go to the history and performance tool. And this is another one very, very handy way to look at your campaign. So
Mhm.
you can see in the slide that it consists of the bar chart of your spend per day, of the graph of the installs and impressions. So why would you look at it here? Because it's matched and displayed together with the history of how your campaign was edited.
Mhm.
And that allows you to understand how the exact action you have taken affected your campaign.
Mhm.
And this is very important in understanding what is the right bidding strategy.
Right.
What is the target ROAS you should be using? How it actually affected my campaign in the past? Was it a good way or a bad way? How my delivery reacted to the changes I've done?
Mhm.
So this page is actually super important. And you've asked me which one is the most important. I wouldn't say this one is, but it's very often being overlooked. And
Mhm.
I definitely would recommend paying a lot of attention to
Mhm.
this page.
Why do you think it's being overlooked? Do people not know enough about this tool or?
It's it's quite an unusual tool and quite unique. I think we are, as a network, in quite a unique position in the way how we designed and
Hmm.
display this data. Um, and probably advertisers are just not used to look at the data this way.
Right.
But every time I'm showing this to everyone, I only get the positive feedback.
Yeah, it's like a wow moment. Why did I not know about this?
Yeah, it's very, very handy, and I've very often encountered in my experience that UA managers would keep track of the edits they make to the campaign on like a separate Excel spreadsheet.
Mhm.
Then you lose the Excel spreadsheet, then you lose the
Right.
access to the Excel spreadsheet, and then you do not remember what was happening to your campaign, and
Hmm.
everybody's sad about that. And here you
Yeah.
have everything in one place.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It looks pretty cool and useful. So I'm glad that we're talking about it today.
Yeah, and the next step here would be the reporting tools we have.
Hmm.
So the reporting dashboard allows you to look at all the data you have for the entire time frame of running your campaign in the holistic way, and you can basically do whatever you want with your data. You can build different slices and looks how you want to evaluate it. You can add different metrics and focus on the ones which are important to you at the moment. And you can also share this information, so you can bookmark the tab and come back to it later. And you would not need to rebuild the dashboard all over and over again. So if you're looking at the network specific information, it's always very useful to come back to this page and check what's happening with your campaigns.
Got it. Okay. So the next question we have is from an indie developer. We'd like to get started with Unity ROAS campaigns ASAP, but we have no prior experience. Can you guide us on how to get started with them?
Sure. So the my favorite thing about ROAS campaigns is that they are so simple that they're actually complicated. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're simple in a way that it's easy to set them up, but
Mm,
it's quite challenging to optimize them. And at Unity, we believe in educated our users, and we're actually here today to tell you more about how our product works.
mhm,
Because if you understand how it works, it will make you a better professional, and you will understand better how to work with it. So your ROAS campaign is different from the installs campaigns you might be running before.
mm,
ROAS campaign optimizes towards the value of the particular user rather than just the probability of the user to install the game after watching the ad in case of the install campaigns. So when we talk about ROAS campaigns, as we've mentioned before, we have two main types of goals you can set for yourself and you can utilize when working with ROAS campaigns. So it's either in-app purchases optimized ROAS campaign or ad revenue ROAS optimized campaign. It can also be a mix of both.
hybrid.
Yes.
Mhm,
Um, when you work with the ROAS campaign, you pretty much have one and only way to influence how it works with the bids. So this is going to be your target ROAS. And this is the only setting which regulates how you work with different users and what goal you're setting
mhm,
for Unity. Because this campaign uses dynamic bidding, it chooses the CPI in each and every particular case and for each and every particular user. So if you look at your install campaign, you set up the CPI of $1 and Unity will push and try to find the audience with these costs. If we're talking about ROAS campaign, you only set up your target ROAS, let's say to 10% for the seventh day, and Unity automatically adjusts the bid in order to achieve the exact ROAS you are setting. So in this case, your bids and your CPI shouldn't actually matter,
Mhm.
because if ROAS is good, ROAS is good. You
Yeah.
don't really care how cheap or how expensive you're acquiring the audience. If you're breaking even within your goal and within your KPIs.
Hmm. So, target ROAS is something I would set myself, right, as the user or the developer. Um, so, do you have any recommendations on what exactly I should consider when setting it up?
Yes. So again, the historical data, how your app performed, is crucial to understanding how to work with it in the future.
Hmm.
When it comes to working with ROAS campaigns, those campaigns are working only because they're based on your data and the data Unity accumulates and processes. So, in order to interconnect all those things together, you're using your mobile measurement partner, so Tangent, for example, and you're providing Unity with the data on how your audience in your game actually makes purchases, how they are watching the ads, how much revenue they generate for you.
Hmm.
So, in order to understand how to work with your target ROAS, you gotta know how the audience from the data sample you are providing to Unity actually behaves in the app,
Right.
how they play the game, and how they generate revenue for you.
Right. Yeah, and I think like from what I know, we also have to run CPI campaigns for a while in order to then, start with ROAS campaigns.
That's correct. So, as I've mentioned, ROAS campaigns use your data as a fuel
Right. Mm-hmm.
for the machine learning algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to run install campaigns for some period of time until you reach the eligibility for the ROAS campaigns.
Okay.
And that means that we will have enough data to understand what is the portrait of the user in your game,
Mm-hmm.
who is the average Joe playing your game.
Mm-hmm.
So we can, and by we I mean Unity algorithm, I'm not doing it manually obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but we can actually go out there to the network and look
Right.
for the users who would be similar to the ones you already have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another question I get, at least as an account executive, is, like when would we know that we're eligible for the ROAS campaigns? How long do we need to run the install CPI campaigns? So do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, so if we look at um, all the ROAS campaigns variations, so ad revenue ROAS campaign optimized towards the 7 day, IAP ROAS campaigns optimized towards the 7 day, ad revenue ROAS campaigns optimized towards the 0,
Mm,
and hybrid ROAS campaigns optimized towards the 7. They have slightly different eligibility criteria,
okay.
and they're different for each of those campaign types by the fact in which cohort we actually need to have the data. So it can either be the 0 cohort or the 7 cohort.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always check how much data you have in the reporting tools available in Unity. And the eligibility criteria is slightly different for each of them. So for IP ROAS campaigns, you must have 10 unique paying users in your D7 cohort. For ad revenue ROAS campaigns, you must acquire 200 installs, each of which would generate at least some ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And those installs must mature to the 7th day. If we're talking about The zero ad revenue ROAS campaigns, it's the same, but with the different cohort data applied. The seven ROAS campaigns are using both data sets from IAP ROAS campaigns
Mm-hmm.
and ad revenue ROAS campaigns.
Right.
If our viewers would want to learn more about that, we have the comprehensive overview of all the eligibility criteria in the knowledge base. And
Mm-hmm.
also, there is a link from the Unity dashboard to the dedicated pages on the Knowledge Center as well.
Okay. Great. Okay. So moving on then.
Yeah, so it is sometimes complicated to understand which particular campaign type, which particular ROAS campaign variation you need to run. So you can always check yourself towards the type of revenue which is dominating in your game and what kind of genre you're using. We live in a very complicated world, for good or for the bad, but and genres can be quite fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So um, do not take the ones we're going to be talking about as an axiom. Like they can be very different, and game developers always experiment with the genres here. But as a rule of thumb, if your game is heavily IP monetized, you probably are looking at the D7 IP ROAS campaigns. If you have an ad monetized game which is designed to create a habit for the player to come back to your game every day to play it for as long as you can, think of word games, coloring games, different kinds of puzzle games, you're probably looking at the D7 ad revenue ROAS campaigns as your main tool. If your game is more like a fun, snackable, and clickable experience, hyper casual game, probably D0 ad revenue ROAS campaign is your best friend here. And if your game has a little bit of everything, you can also optimize towards both revenue flows at the same time with hybrid ROAS campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I found this slide very insightful. Like, I like how you've mapped the type of campaign with the metrics, KPIs, and also the genres. I think that's very useful. So yeah, thank you for putting that together.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we've already discussed how to work with the campaign's eligibility and what are the data requirements. So you can always refer to this information on the Knowledge Center and check when your campaign is actually becoming eligible for you to create a ROAS campaigns for the same game. Uh, Always make sure that you're looking at the same cohorted day
Mhm.
and not at the um, relative historical look back. So, in order to find out what is your D7 ad revenue data, you actually need to look to the D7 look back, not the last 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And depositors here, I just wanted to confirm it means like paying users.
Yes, those are unique paying users.
Okay.
And this is the main type of data utilized by IAP ROAS campaigns. So everything you have here, we receive all this information from your MMP.
Hmm.
And one of the most important steps in running your ROAS campaigns is actually setting up the data passing from MMP to Unity. We are talking about quite complicated systems here, which are talking to each other, and we want to make sure that everything's set up correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've just added like the steps on how this can be done via Tengen. So for both in-app purchase data as well as ad revenue data. Yeah, so I think the most important thing that Igor has told me is that sometimes the Unity game ID is entered incorrectly. So I just wanted to emphasize on that. I don't want to go through each step. If the viewers have any questions, they can just reach out to us directly at support@tangent.com. And yeah, we've recently just released a new callback setup version. So yeah, we're always improving our user experience. So I just also wanted to mention that. But yeah, I guess nothing more to add here. So I'm just going
Yeah.
to
I
move on.
just want to stress it one more time how
Mhm.
important this setup is, and always make sure to reference Tangents or any other MMP's guidelines provided to make sure that you are setting up everything correctly. All the systems are different, so
Right.
this is very important. Yeah, and I think we're approaching like the actual creating of ROAS campaigns. So as I've said before, actually creating it is simple. So once you become eligible, you just navigate to the all apps page, you select your app, you create a campaign, and you select ROAS as your optimization type.
Hmm.
And after adding the name of the campaign, here you are. You have your campaign up and ready to be added with all the rest of the settings. So um, this setup doesn't really differ from all other campaign types we have. The only difference being that you're working with target ROAS instead of the bids. Everything else remains the same, so you still need to add the countries you want to target. You can work with targeting options such as devices, operating system versions, and anything else related to the particular device where the ads is going to be shown.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, after that, you add the attribution links and you're ready to go live with your ROAS campaign.
Right.
And that's where the interesting part begins, and you start to observe what's going on and how the users are actually acting in your game.
Right. So can we move on to the next question then,
I
Igor?
think I think we can. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So this is from an app marketer. I have been running Unity ROAS campaigns with little success. I'd like to learn about the best practices for Unity ROAS campaigns from a Unity expert.
Perfect. This question sounds like music to my ears because I'm being called an expert,
Mhm.
and the challenges we're facing are on the ways for us to become better.
Mhm.
So, yeah, as I've mentioned before, we do believe in the product first approach. So, in order to work with Unity and to optimize your campaigns correctly, it's always important to understand how the product works. So, one of the pillars of working with ROAS campaigns or pretty much any other optimized campaign types is to understand the time frame.
Mhm.
So we were talking a lot today about the zero cohorts, the seven cohort. What does it actually mean and why it's so important? So when we say the seven cohort, we mean a specific amount of users who were acquired on a particular date and they spent at least 7 days in the game.
Mhm.
So it's important to mention that when we say D7, we actually mean 8 days.
It is.
Yeah,
Because the zero is the first day. Right.
exactly. So D0 is the day of the install. And this is sort of a common practice in the market
Right.
that we do not include D0 as the actual day of the install to the cohort.
Mhm.
Um, we basically are doing that in order to compare apples to apples, the
Right.
same data to the same data.
Mhm.
So, why is it important to understand the cohorted data? Because if you're working with a D7 optimized campaign, you must allow the algorithm to work with the same data you are working with. So, for example, if you have made the changes to your campaign today, you need to wait up until Unity fully utilizes this data, so for 8 days at least, and only after that, introduce the new changes. This is important because, first of all, you must look at the data when it's the fullest. So when it the cohort is actually mature and you allowed all the users to make the purchases. And also, you have to allow the ROAS algorithm to actually do its job and optimize towards the time window it was designed for.
Mm-hmm.
So this is true for both D7 and D0.
Got it.
And another pillar of understanding how to work with your campaigns is how to work with your target ROAS setting. And in order to understand your target ROAS setting and to work with it better, you have to understand how it influences the performance of your campaign and how the data and your inputs to the dashboard affect the way your campaign is performing.
Mm-hmm.
So um, here in this scheme, we have the simplified um, version of how Unity's ROAS campaigns work. So everything starts with our ROAS machine learning model, which takes the data you have provided to Unity. So remember what we have said before about sending the data from Tangent to Unity,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and actually comparing this data to the network. So once we do that, Unity checks how much money a particular user can actually make in your game by the optimized cohort. So here in the example, we have D7, but it's true for D0 as well. So once we've determined that, this is where we are using your target ROAS to calculate the actual bid which will go into the auction. So as almost every ad networks auction, ours is based on eCPM. And eCPM is a combined metric of your bid and the predicted probability of the user to install the game after watching the ad. So Unity calculates everything based on our models and based on your historical data, and you only input your target ROAS for us to yield the eCPM and run the auction, where the ad, which is the most competitive, wins and is being shown to the end user.
Right. Okay, so this is like a diagram of how the machine learning works, basically.
Yeah. So there are many components of machine learning here,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, it's simplified a lot to provide better understanding.
Yeah.
But what we actually want you today to get out of all this complicated thing is in the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So the main way for you to work with your target ROAS is to understand how it influences your eCPM. So as we've said before, high eCPM means we win a lot of impressions, we have high volumes, we have wide reach, and potentially more depositors, more paying users.
Mm-hmm.
However, it comes at the expense of higher costs. So if you decrease your target ROAS, your eCPM actually goes up.
Right.
You're widening the reach of your campaign, and you're acquiring more paying users. If you increase your target ROAS, you're lowering the volume and the delivery of your campaign. You
Mm-hmm.
start to win less impressions, but the users you are acquiring are expected to be more profitable. So with the lower eCPM,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to ROAS campaigns, you would actually win less installs, less impressions, but they're going to be more profitable for you.
Yeah. So
They're
more
expected to.
valuable users.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And the truth is actually somewhere in the middle here. So
Mm-hmm.
everything depends on your strategy, and you will probably have to experiment with your target ROAS several times before you find the balance here.
Right.
When it comes to actually managing ROAS campaigns, I'm happy to share a few tips on what you what you should not do, and what you should do when working with them.
Mhm.
So, first of all, as we're working with a quite sensitive, very complicated machine learning model, actually, several ones of them, it's always better to limit your adjustments to the campaign to smaller changes.
Mhm.
Smaller incremental changes of 10 to 20% to your bids and targets is always better. They're better digested by the algorithm, and they will result in just your campaigns performing better as well.
Yeah.
Um, Again, coming back to what we've said about the cohorted data, make sure to stay within those cohorts and always allow Unity to have mature cohorts after the optimization. So if you're working with the 7 ROAS campaigns, you should optimize your campaigns not more often than once in 8 days.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. Did you have a question? No?
I yeah, one of I wanted to build like a hypothetical situation. Let's say I've, set up a target ROAS. I'm really happy. My campaigns are performing really well. And let's say 2 weeks later, I decide to make this 10 to 20% adjustment to my target ROAS, but it stops performing well. What would you advise in such a situation that I can do?
Yeah. So what we are talking about here are the recommendations and the ideal scenario.
Hmm.
So, in the ideal scenario, you should not optimize your campaign more often than once in 7 days.
Hmm.
However, if you see that your campaign is actually drastically underperforming, or spends too much money, or you're just generally unhappy with the results, you have the full control over your activity. So you should not need to wait until you spend your entire monthly budget on
Hmm.
nothing. You should actually take the control and optimize the campaigns, either increase or decrease the target ROAS,
Hmm.
depending on the situation.
Yeah. But let's say I've increased it, but
Mhm.
I'm suddenly not my campaigns are not performing well anymore.
So in this is a tricky one because
Mhm.
as we've said before, not performing well can mean a variety of different things.
Right.
So we need to define what does not performing mean here. Is
Hmm.
the campaign not spending enough? Is the return on the ad spend is too low?
Hmm.
Any other type of problem? So depending on what signal we have, we take the action here.
Okay. Right. Got it. Are we ready to move to the
Yeah,
next?
yeah. So those are the tips you should avoid, but there are a few you should consider doing.
Hmm.
So um, we've talked a lot about the data and how important it is and how it fuels the machine learning algorithm. So one of the tips advertisers frequently miss out is that you can actually run several campaign types at the same time for the same game in the same country. So, for example, running a D7 ad revenue ROAS campaign, D7 IAP ROAS campaign, and an install campaign all together for the same game should not hurt your activity. In reality, what's going to happen? Each campaign will accumulate different types of data. So users acquired with ad revenue ROAS campaign will they will still generate purchases, which will be used towards the optimization of the IAP ROAS campaigns.
Hmm.
All the users will install the game. It will benefit how your install campaign performs, and this is like a circle where each and every campaign type is interconnected. So, bottom line, running different campaign types for the same game perfectly fine and will actually benefit your performance.
Interesting.
However, in order for everything to work, you got to maintain healthy daily budgets. So, as we've said before, everything's based on the data. and there should be sufficient data. So we usually recommend having at least $500 daily budget per country in one campaign. This will allow you to actually gather statistically significant amount of data, and which you will be able to look at, and also it will allow Unity to optimize properly.
Mhm.
Um, Again, more data you provide to Unity, the better, as long as this data is digestible. So make sure to reference our knowledge center and find out what types of data you're using and how to pass it to Unity. Usually, the way to pass the data would be your MMP, and you can select how you're feeding Unity with different types of data.
Mhm.
Um, One tip from the campaign management side: make sure to keep your top performing countries separately. So if you know well that your game performs better in France because, for example, you've built a word game and
Mhm.
your team is originally from France and they're francophones, so they've designed the game with French language in mind,
Mhm.
which works extremely well in France, but you still have to do some work in the rest of the world. So
Mhm.
in this situation, you probably would want to keep France in your separate campaign.
Yeah.
Um, Besides everything we've mentioned on the target ROAS and settings of the ROAS campaigns, you can still leverage block listing feature. That means that if you, as a smart human being, observe some extreme values delivered from the specific source games, you still can block them for some period of time, allowing the algorithm to skip the particular source app and probably come back to it later, but improve your performance in the short term. And when working with ROAS campaigns analysis, and particularly with creatives, besides looking at the delivery metrics, so how well the creatives are converting the users from impression to install, make sure to consider the ROAS on the creative level as well. This is again, something which is very often overlooked.
Mhm. Right. Okay. I think, yeah, we're at our last question, which is from an app marketer. Where is the best place for me to reach out to Unity support?
So we are on a mission to build and maintain the platform which is accessible by everyone, and we are doing this all because we believe that the world is a better place with more creators in it. In order to get support from Unity, your first stop, in my opinion, should always be our knowledge center, and all the things we've discussed today is available there,
Mhm.
and you can always refer to this data. We update it constantly, and you will find guidelines on how to set things up, how to keep them running, and how to become successful. If you want to talk to um, fellow developers, other advertisers, you're welcome to join Unity Ads forums, where you can find what are the current trends, what are the common pain points, maybe some challenge you're facing has already been encountered by someone and they know the solution and they would be happy to share it with you. And lastly, if you're encountering technical difficulties, you can reach out to our support team and they can provide you with the solution for everything you might be facing. You can either do that through email or directly through the dashboard by clicking the question mark button and filing out a ticket.
Great. That brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for this very insightful presentation, Igor. Yeah, so if there are any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below and we're happy to answer them for you. And if you found this video helpful, please leave a like and you can subscribe to our channel for more similar content.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tangent Team, for having us today. Thank you, Tabarak, for hosting me. Great questions, and thanks for watching.